Along here, sir, please, along here. All aboard the failing Grayling Express. Next stop, absolute incompetence. Hardly a week goes by without another cock-up by Transport Secretary Chris Grayling. In the last week alone, he's got the blame for the government having to give £33 million of taxpayers' money to Eurotunnel, his privatisation of the probation service when Justice Secretary was revealed to have cost £170 million, and 5 local authorities, some of them Tory, accused him of a giant con over Heathrow's 3rd runway. But this is nothing new for Mr Grayling. After all, he was the minister blamed last summer for the chaos caused when the rail timetables were redrawn, and he was widely mocked when he awarded and later withdrew a government ferry contract to Seabourn Freight, a company that had no ships and had never run a ferry service. The only thing going in his favour is that he did run Mrs May's campaign to become Prime Minister. That was a real success. But is Grayling really a total incompetent, or has he just been unlucky? Were all these mistakes his fault, or were some of them at least the responsibility of a series of anonymous civil servants? When something goes seriously wrong, should we always blame it on an individual minister? That does let the officials go scot-free.
Very interesting point you make there. Very interesting, because how much is the boss actually responsible for what goes on for his or her beneath them? But let's actually hear from the man himself. This is Chris Grayling speaking on Sophie Ridge on Sunday in January.
Why do you think it is that this kind of misfortune seems to follow you?
Well, it's a challenging time for all of us in government. We have to deliver change. We have to tackle new issues, like the drones, for example. So it's a question of getting on with the job and tackling the problems as best you can. But at the end of the day, dealing with your financial positions and also dealing with particular challenges like the expanding demand on the railways, you just got to get on with the job and do your best.
And to keep the theme going with your excellent fat controller pastiche or whatever it was, I have to bring in, on platform 1, we hear the current prisons minister say transforming rehabilitation has meant we are now monitoring 40,000 more offenders than we were in the past. This is good for public safety. On platform 2, Chris Grayling said not a penny of taxpayers' money has gone or will go to Seabourn Freight. Up on platform 3, he said the no-deal lorry trial worked fine and served its purpose in testing how quickly lorries could leave the test site. Over on platform 4, regarding the Eurotunnel payment, he said the government took a decision in the best interest of the country to prepare for a no-deal Brexit. And lastly, to platform 5, on Heathrow, the Department of Transport said they are confident that fewer people will be affected by noise pollution under the new flight paths planned. In summary, I think you're right. I think a lot of people are probably getting away, and they shouldn't be. But ultimately, at this level, if you carry the brief, you should carry the responsibility as well. And I think, as what you say, 1 could be a mistake, 2 is misfortune or whatever. Yeah. There are too many hanging around his neck.
I think that's right. But every so often, I mean, I thought this thing on drones. I mean, you imagine, you're the minister, you're sitting there, you're not having a bad week, no one's been going for it, and suddenly someone starts flying a drone around Gatwick Airport, and you get the blame, and you think, he probably never heard of drones.
The fact is, he is the kind of the political version of Mr Bean, you know. I read a great quote in The Spectator this week where it said that Dunkirk could have been very different if Grayling had been in charge. That was fantastic. But, you know, the Seabourn thing, this was so... You know, you both mentioned that you know, the people behind him in the Department of Transport. If either Grayling or his civil servants, who are in that department among the highest paid in the government, if they had just done due diligence, not only would they have found out that Seabourn had no boats, they'd have found out that Ben Sharp is one of the directors of the company, also has another company that's gone bust, owing lots of money to the taxman. He has another company which is, quotes, technically insolvent. And Seabourn itself only had 35 grand in assets. So it's obvious they're not the people for the job.
But you wouldn't expect the minister to be doing that degree of research.
But his department.
That's my point. His department, the people who are doing that.
Would you not do some checks on it?
I think what we got here. What we got here is a geezer, and I call it the Midas touch in reverse, all right? Everything he touches turns to the obvious, all right? I remember a young private soldier like this, right? And everything he did was useless. They ended up, they took him out of a rifle company, which is a fighting company, because he just kept doing everything wrong. They put him in the parachute display team. He fell out of the plane early once. He luckily was hooked on. He then tried to stop the props with a ladder. The guy was an They had to find him another job.
Did they promote him?
Yeah. So they had to find this geezer another job. And I think, to be fair, Mr. Grayling, you've had your chance, but you could definitely do with jogging on and finding another job somewhere.
He's part of the Walking Dead now, Mr. Grayling. He's got no chance.
In our dreams. Do you know that he went stateside this week? The New York Times ran a story with the headline, "How does he survive? The curious case of failing Grayling." And they said he's becoming a byword for haplessness in a golden age of political blundering.
You're saving Private Grayling.
He is representing something that we don't want represented.
I was trying to defend him a bit. I was trying to defend him a bit. And then I came across this from Anna Soubry.
See, that was the difference about the Thatcher government. People talk about the Thatcher era and everything else. Remember, the great big beasts there, the people of real ability, like the Ken Clarks, the Michael Heseltines. These were mighty, mighty political animals. Can you...
Well, we've got Chris Grayling.
Got Chris Grayling? See, I can now be really rude about some of these people. Chris Grayling, why really, to God? A man who has made a whole career as advanced on pitiful failure after failure. And it's like, he's going to screw it up.
This is just funny. Let me just bring in this poll here. There's a poll of satisfaction among Tory party members. So Andrea Leadsom gets plus 55%, Jeremy Hunt gets plus 47%, Grayling gets minus 60%. That's how bad.
The sad thing is, there's no one left on his side.
But there's a serious side to this. So that New York Times story I was telling you about, they printed that they'd calculated that he'd cost the British taxpayer 1.7 million. They then had to correct it to 1.7 billion.
Yes.
Wow.
This is an age of austerity. He is bleeding us.
I know.
And why is there no accountability? If this guy was working in a big company, not only would he be fined, but the CEO who let him operate.
I hate to bring in the B word, but it's because Theresa May can't afford to lose a Brexiteer who's not associated.
I think he's got
with
something
the far
on that.
right.
No, I don't think it's. I think it's much something. I think he's got something on that for a long time.
I'm very nervous. He was driving me home in the cab tonight.
No, it's. But you've seen this before, haven't you?
Yes.
Suddenly there is a politician, and everything goes wrong, and everything they touch goes wrong.
Yeah.
And I don't think you can save them, really. I think.
But isn't it like your old game football? You're a manager, or the cards go against you, and you just he's done for now. Surely it's just a matter of time.
I thought that
we said that after he was Justice Minister.
It is.
He's still floundering, isn't he? He's still going for it, and you can't knock him for that, can you? Do you know what I mean?
If you're Mrs May and you've only got 5 Brexiteers left in your cabinet, you can't afford to lose one.
No. I remember a former commissioner of the Met once saying to me that despite everything that he was doing and the success and the detectives, it just takes one loony copper to do something stupid in Bromley and his whole career is done for. And you wonder whether that's actually fair if you're a boss.
But you've met him, haven't you? You've met him.
Really? Yeah, I've done him loads of times.
So, and what is it, as a man, when you meet him...
Oh, no, I quite like him.
No, I think he's the most unremarkable man I've ever met.
I like him as a bloke.
I have to say.
You were going to say...
Well, I always used to say that when I ran the BBC.
Yeah.
You're sitting there having an OK week, and then suddenly somebody in Cardiff does something you've never heard of, and the world comes down upon you. Now, it's worse in a government post, because our whole government system protects the civil servant.
Yes.